Hey, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about we're specifically going to talk about tabletop role-playing games and the very rising importance of box sets. So let's talk about it. Okay, so I think box sets have become incredibly important very, very quickly. Right? So I think they're doing two things that we never really expected before. So what is the identified purpose of box sets? So the identified purpose of a box set is specifically to um, it's to give an introduction of the game in one contained portion to new players. Right? That's what box sets are. If you read the text on the back of a box set, they'll say, "Hey, are you interested in this game and you'd like to try it and get started?" Well, in this box set is every single thing you need to play Dungeons and Dragons, to play Starfinder, to play Pathfinder, to play Forbidden Lands. These are all real box sets. To play Dungeons and Dragons, Stranger Things. To play, what are some of the other really good box sets that are out there? Oh, to play Equestrian Tales, like the My Little Pony tabletop role playing game. To play Call of Cthulhu, to play the Alien RPG, to play the Tales from the Loop RPG. Every single one of these that I just mentioned have absolutely superb box sets. And if you read on the back what these box sets are for, it's to say, hey, you're a new person to the RPG scene, to tabletop role playing game scene. You can buy this one box. It's going to have all the dice you need. It's going to have characters you need. It's going to have rules that you need. It's going to have maps you need. It might even have minis that you need to play. But if you buy this box set, you're going to be playing Tales from the Loop, or Dungeons and Dragons, or Equestrian, or Tales of Equestria, or the Alien RPG, or Forbidden Lands. You're going to be playing this quickly, right? There's only going to be a little bit of stuff you have to read, and maybe you bought this on Monday and you're playing on Saturday, right? That's what they're saying they're accomplishing. They do accomplish that, right? I think they do serve in that way, but that is the most minimal actual purpose of these box sets now. And the reason why is tabletop role-playing games have truly become it's interesting. Tabletop role-playing games are an absolutely horrible business model, but they do have an outrageously high, almost ridiculously high impact on American culture and on the culture of the world. The smartest people in the world are playing tabletop role-playing games. And really, I think tabletop role-playing games have become an incredibly important, incredibly savvy divider line for who is smart, who is creative, who is artistic. And frankly, unfortunately, as a correlation to that, who's rich, right? Because the reality is, if you're artistic and intelligent and smart, there's a pretty darn good possibility you figured out how to make money, or you will soon. That's how the world works now, right? And so tabletop role-playing games have this really outsized impact on culture in our society. They have an impact in culture that is far beyond the effectiveness of their business model, because tabletop role-playing games have a horribly ineffective business model. They're just not good for making money, in my opinion. And I'm very aware of Matthew Mercer and a few of those other, like the handful of guys that have made $1 million on Kickstarter, right? This is scrub money in any real industry. Like, this is the kind of money that's spent on catering, right? Even though we have a few success stories, it still doesn't mean that tabletop role-playing games are a good business model. Almost everybody in tabletop role-playing games who's spending time to make them could be making more money in almost any other industry. All right, so what are the two purposes for box sets that we really should talk about that are really incredibly important? All right, so here we go. All right, so one, box sets now serve as a mini version of the games they represent. So one of the things that has happened is tabletop role-playing games have escaped have escaped reasonable complexity. The vast majority of tabletop role-playing games are overly complex. And this problem only gets worse and worse and worse all the time. So what do I mean by that? Well, basically, they started complex in 1974. Dungeons & Dragons really was systematized Tolkien, in my opinion. And there's just a lot of number crunching. And this really served us well in the 70s, 80s, and 90s when just nerds were playing it. But now the word nerd, the word geek, doesn't even have any meaning anymore. It doesn't mean at all what it used to be, right? And the reality is, anybody and everyone who wants to can play these games. But a lot of people look at them and then just shake their head and walk away. And the reason why is the games are too complex, right? Dungeons & Dragons is a perfect example. It takes 750 pages of reading to Dungeon Master to start, right? You have to read the PHB, the MMG, the PHB, the MM, and the DMG. That's 750 pages of content. That's outrageously complex, right? And it's too complex. So, the box set, the Essentials kit, right? That boils Dungeons & Dragons down into less than 100 pages and supplies you with every single thing you need. And frankly, I think most groups would be far better off just using the box sets and never really graduating to these bigger and better platforms, right? Or the more full versions of the game. And the reason why is those fuller versions of the game bring in exactly the same type of nerd geek culture that we had in the 80s and the 90s. So the box sets of games are inviting all creative, artistic, intelligent people to play our games. And then the full versions of the game are going, no, you know what? We really just need the math nerds and the math geeks. And the rest of you can go take a long walk off a short pier. And it's very uninviting, and it's not good. It's a really bad thing for the hobby, in my opinion. So what the box sets do is they say, this game has a miniature version that can be played by really skilled game masters who want to keep the amount of pages involved to a minimum so that they can attract busy people, creative people, people who are not going to spend 10 hours in a week determining what is the best build for a ranger, and then scare off other players at the table when they bring in a character that they spent 20 minutes on, right? By playing the box set and by keeping the game contained to the box set, you allow intelligent, creative, artistic people who aren't math people, who aren't logic people, who aren't crazy strong damage per second players. And that is an incredibly valuable service, an incredibly valuable specific thing that these games can offer. And I think that's important. I think that's powerful. I think it's really good. All right, let's talk about the next thing that box sets do. This I just figured this out. This is really fascinating. I love this aspect. So what is the other thing that they do? Well, the other purpose that these games play, that these box sets determine, is what are the games that are actually successful today. The box set is a mark of success. It is a badge of success. It is saying that this game has figured it out. They have figured out how to get good art into their game, how to get good writing into their game, and how to reach a lot of people for a product that frankly is very hard to sell today. Tabletop role-playing games are not an easy sell, especially outside the Dungeons & Dragons label, right? So Dungeons & Dragons has said, oh, we got box sets. They literally have a dozen box sets, right? And so that is saying we are successful. We always have a box set available, right? But like Pathfinder has the bar none, the very best box set I have ever seen created. It is absolutely phenomenal. It includes minis, it includes dice, it includes lots of really amazing, incredible items which are really, really specific and awesome. And it declares Pathfinder as a very distinct, determined. It really sets Pathfinder as a very successful game. Forbidden Lands recently came out. Modiphius is on the rise. Actually, Free League Adventures, I think, is the name of that company. They Same company that did the Alien RPG. There is a Tales from the Loop, a Alien RPG box set, and a Forbidden Lands box set. Box sets are saying we know how to produce, we know how to make our game matter, and we have arrived at the highest level of success that a tabletop role playing game can have today. And I think that's actually the most important thing is if your game's got a box set, you're doing it right. Like you have mastered selling these games, mastered building these games, and mastered getting them out to the market. Because the reality is, people don't build box sets for games that stink, and they don't build box sets for games that aren't making it in the market. If you think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinion on this subject. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.